Okay, everyone. Welcome to the ninth week of the 12 Weeks to Wellness Opulence. Today is going to be a little bit different as I continue to admit people. Today's going to be a little bit different. Usually we go over the template of the sheets that I distribute before the call, and those are available to you to look. I'll be reading a couple things off of it, but we have two masterminds on the call today, two teachers, like I'm just going to call you both geniuses of self-discovery, of energy, of consciousness, of healing. And so I'm really just kind of let them go. And what we're talking about tonight is the spirit, the je, which is associated with the consciousness of heroism and willpower, and how that unfolds through us, our human form, through our kidneys and our bladder. It's also associated with the water element. And one of the things on the sheet actually says, just like water moves in one direction, so does your intuitive nature. It just knows what is right for you, and it just is. And when you connect to the ability to know and discern what is truly is that you want in life without guilt and shame, you are able to live in the full capacity of that. And so that's what we're going to do tonight. We're just going to flow. I kind of like to do that anyway, but I think that what's going to happen here tonight is going to be beautiful just as it all comes out. And so thank you, both Ken and Mark, for being here. And thank you for everyone for being here.
Wow. My pleasure. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
And for those of you who don't know, Ken is on the board of Healy in the Americas, and he is an epigeneer. So he is an engineer, but also an epigeneer. So he helps people with epigenetics. And then Mark is, if anybody didn't watch his segment on our Solstice Sync Up, he is a Gene Keys master among, human design and the Mayan weather report, which, you know what, Mark, why don't you, if that's available, could you kick us off with that?
You flatter me, Ashley. And Ken, it is an honor as always to be on the stage by your side. And with these beautiful humans, you are all so amazing. And Ashley, it is always available to you. And I thought it was so amazing that, so we'll jump straight in, the Galactic Mayan Weather Report. So the Mayans, the way they saw time was not as a linear trajectory. People talk about the Mayan calendar, 2012, etc., but they looked at everything in cycles. So there's a real power to being able to put life into context. And as I say to people these days, whether it's real or not, it's kind of irrelevant. It's just having that fairy tale to live by is a really powerful way to help bring some order into our lives. But with that being said, the weather report today is actually incredibly relevant to what we're doing here today, Ashley, with willpower. So last week, we talked about we're in the yellow human wave spell. So it's this 13-day period that's all about really evolving our capacity to choose for ourselves what wisdom stream is relevant for me. Because, everyone, has certain things which when you hear them, they really hit something inside and kind of wake us up and inspire us. And then we run around telling everyone else about this, right? Now, I've done this with the Gene Keys for many years in my early days. And a lot of people, when they go into the spiritual work, they will jump into this this excitement and just think if everyone knew this, then everything would be okay. But something this yellow human wave spell teaches us during this 13-day period is, everyone has a different way. The pathway to through all of this is very unique for everyone. And so this yellow human is all about really stepping into willpower. Willpower is actually one of the keywords for this wave spell. And it's about using our willpower to influence our reality through our selection of our wisdom that we choose to kind of integrate into our being. And we're in the ninth, 10th day, as we're crossing from USA and Australia. We're kind of crossing time zones here. And the lesson that we get from this 10th day is all about how do you manifest your free will? How do you manifest that wisdom into your life and that influence in a way that you want it? And so when we drop into this, the the Mayans would say that in order to really take that wisdom, integrate it, and see the results, it takes what they call the yellow solar sun energy, which is the sun is kind of the masculine. It's the sun itself, it's the rays, it's the action. And the solar tone is all about the pulsing of the sun. You know how the sun has those solar flares that just kind of, and they come down and bring all this intensity to the planet. In a way, what this is really saying is right now together, we're being encouraged to actually step up and take an action of willpower, just like a solar flare in your life. It's not about using that willpower to continue to drive the changes or the influence or the wisdom that you're bringing into your day, but it's about using willpower to initiate it, to just kind of kick it off and make it, start the process. And I just had to share, Ashley, that, I've been very caught up in a lot of things that life was happening here. And it was 2:00 in the morning when I was just about to go to sleep after a very late night. I was reading to wind down. It's been crazy here. And I got the message from you, Ashley, calling in the support. And my G said yes. And when I read what you'd sent me at 2 a.m, and I'm sitting there thinking that gives me about 5 hours sleep, I saw the willpower and the courageous action, the heroism. And I thought, you know what, that is what I need in my life right now. And that is what this, I've seen for so long, I've been that synchronicity watcher. I'm sure many of you can relate to this in the spiritual movement. We see magic everywhere. We see synchronicity everywhere. Yet many of us stay poor. Many of us stay struggling. Many of us stay looking for that loved one and the magical, fairy tale that the synchronicities seem to be leading us to, but we never seem to get there. And that's when I realized it's because we sit on the edge watching the synchronicities, but not taking action on them. And so Ashley, it was actually a powerful moment at 2 a.m. in the morning when I got your message and I read that and I thought, okay, it starts today. And to top it off, this morning, just before I jumped in the shower and had my first cold shower in a long time, and it's winter here in Australia, freezing, not as freezing it gets over there, but that was incredible. And that's why I'm so buzzed up and wide awake right now is literally by taking that willpower and taking that action, because otherwise in the end, it's just beautiful stories. That's
so
my
amazing.
extended weather report for you.
No, that's so amazing. And I am all about the watching synchronicities. I for the past couple of months, it's been wild, all the things that I've seen, because I've been on a journey too. I mean, we all have, but I've been on a pretty wild journey since May, when I had that heart opening experience in Orlando that I talked about a couple of weeks ago. But what you just said about, and I was telling Ken before he got on, I'm like dripping sweat right now because I'm under the weather. And when you said cold shower, the lights flickered. So I was like, okay, I'm taking a cold shower later. So thank you. And another thing about aligned will, this morning, Kristen's at an event and Anna is has a thing with her children, so neither of them could be on. And Kristen, of course, was like, you can just reschedule it. Like, you have every reason to reschedule tonight. And something pulls me to be here with you guys every single Thursday. It's not just for you. It's for me too. It's my connection into, my purpose of being in a like-minded community of people who are really here to make a difference in their lives and in the world. So thank you for sharing that, Mark. Mm-hmm. Okay, Ken.
Wow.
Drop some wisdom bombs on us about willpower and alignment.
Wow. I love what you said, Mark. Thank you for that. The will, the third center, the third chakra in our body, is essentially where our will, the solar plexus, right? The will is interface is right there. So interestingly enough, we're also talking about the liver and kidneys, some of the parts of the body. I often speak around our quantum connection, the connection to the field per se, right? And the field is what? The field is this infinite intelligence, this this vast space of content. And we interface with that, you know, through our planet, through our solar system, but ultimately through this body that has this intelligent design within it and operates within a divine measure, right? I mean, it's how many of you are making your heart beat, right? It's not happening. How many of you are digesting your food, or can you even tell it to stop digesting your food? I mean, can you tell your liver or kidneys to just take a break for the day because you want them to rest? No, it's always operating at this divine intelligence. And the thing that overrides all of that, I mean, 800,000 cells per second, you may have heard me on other calls say that. This is what's happening in your body, irregardless if you're happy, sad, alone, or fulfilled, or worthy or unworthy. It's happening no matter what. And the thing that overrides all of that is your will. Your will is stronger than the divine will. The divine will wants the best of you. It wants your body to be the most optimal, vital, and healthy. But it will succumb to your will. This is the power that we have over evolution, over the creation of every cell. And so I'm often speaking to the point of, well, how are we being in our world? What will are we succumbing to? The outside exterior will of the environment and the world, or the interior willpower of ourselves, or the divine will? You know, what are we attached to? So I am one for, I understand the power of the environment, and it has a way of orchestrating its ill effects or positive effects on us. I mean, how many of you guys have ever been to a sports event where you're live in the stands and you're on the winning side and everybody's cheering and happy, and you can't really be grumpy, can you? I mean, you've got this energetic influence that says you just maybe want to stand up and cheer even though you had a bad day. It just happens because that environmental will is outwilling yours. Yeah. So so it's important that we maintain some vision, some aspect of what I like to the heroism, the courage, or the divine creation that we are, to keep some semblance of what I like to call an intention. And you guys know what an intention means. So as Mark woke up early this morning and started reading this content, it started to build kind of an intention within. Yeah. I mean, there was this fired up, you know, you're seeing this content that feels right, feels understood, it feels empowering. And then just like being on the winning side of that ball game, you start feeling it inside, right? And you start aligning with it. So this is a great topic, and a great understanding for knowing how we can orchestrate the health of our body by aligning with the will greater than the environment, greater than a disorder, greater than a disease, greater than a lowering vibration of illness within the body, aligning with it every second. Of course, that's going to help ward off certain issues or chronic conditions within our biology. But even if, like Ashley's talking about being a little under the weather, and I heard Linnell talk about it as well. And so even when something does come on, you can shorten the space of time in which your body heals by maintaining a higher will, maintaining this higher, greater understanding of our divine orchestration, or the body's ability to heal itself, and what that requires. And here's my belief structure that's I think that's been proven by myself and many of the folks with what I orchestrate in the Dr. Joe community, is that the simple thing to change, and Mark kind of touched on it, is belief. That's the most important thing that we can shift, is our belief about a disorder, a disease, a condition, a problem, an environmental influence, some signaling of our senses. What we believe about it is literally the interface to building the biology, and to understand that our bodies in this space and time, in this very moment, have an entire historical record of every emotion, every experience, every interface you've had in your life. And all it requires is your belief from an outside point of view. You see something outside of you and you believe it's true. You believe it has value. You believe it has influence. And the body just says, you got it. I'm in, partner. I will show you a body that really reflects what you believe. So that's the will that overpowers the divine will. The divine will says your body has cell division to the tune of 800,000 per second. It can be healthy or it can be unhealthy. And I will partner with you in whatever way you want. But it's the belief and our own free will that builds this literal biology, and we orchestrate that. So I love this subject of will, understanding that the belief about it is the partnership. You know, if will is the power, then or the engine, then our belief is the fuel. So just be careful what you're fueling, I guess you might say, right?
Mm-hmm. When you said that, I was actually thinking of something you said to me earlier when I asked you to be on the call. I said, because there are some people that just like don't get sick. Ken's one of them. And I was like, when am I going to be so strong that I can not ever get sick? And he said, when you change your belief. And as soon as he said that, the light flickered again. So cold shower and belief work. And something on the sheet that Dr. Michelle Patrick had said was that the Je, which is what we're talking about today, is about wisdom and a return to origin of self, allowing consciousness to fold as it wills through us and then truly surrendering to it. So I feel like when we're taught about the solar plexus and will and heroism, we think masculine energy. We think like showing up even when it's, you know, really hard and just pushing and pushing and pushing. And we all know that there's this whole divine feminine, you know, consciousness shift in our world that like, that's not working anymore. So and then Mark, your work with the gene keys, and Ken, your work with energy and consciousness. I just want you guys to maybe talk about like what that means to return to the origin of yourself.
You want to go first, Mark?
I'll tell you what, Ken, I'll jump in if you don't mind, my man. And by the way, thank you. Like, I'm just sitting here this morning, so grateful for your message, Ashley, because Ken, just hearing when you said by aligning with a will greater than the environment, that was a powerful statement. And you so many more that you delivered. But as you were talking, Ken, it got me thinking for many years when I was going through some of my hardest times. When I became a young father at 28, and you know, his mother I met at a festival. It was the longest acid trip I'd ever taken, and and the greatest one with the greatest results. Thankfully, we're all great friends, everything, and it became the material for my spiritual growth. You know, that drove that. But there were times it was really tough, and I remember at nighttime I'd go out at night and I'd look up at the moon, and I'd just have this saying that would keep coming to my head, and I kind of resisted it. Because it was, thy will be done. Because for me, I resisted it because it always felt very, you know, I related it to Christianity. I related it to giving away my power. And so I didn't really like it at first, but it just kept coming. And then eventually, you know, I was at a point where it was quite hard. And this is where I discovered human design and things started changing. But at that point, I surrendered to it. And I said, thy will be done. Thy will be done. And I would say that at nighttime, and I would just keep saying that. And then you kind of helped me realize, Ken, that over these years, the thing that's changed is my relationship with that saying, thy will be done. Thy will be done. When I say that now, I'm kind of talking to myself. I'm talking to my higher self. I'm talking to that purer part of me, that wisdom that wants to come through me. Not a masculine God, like you say, Ashley, not this outside authority, but my higher authority, my inner authority. And thy will be done is speaking to myself. And in some ways, Ken, you've helped me close that loop this morning. And that was really powerful. And on that, when you say, Ashley, about the masculine energy and the feminine, this is something that as a man in this world that's going through quite a confusing transition with how we talk about these energies and how we talk about being a man or being a woman. It's become very confusing in many ways. And the one thing that really sits for me is, as a man, I've always, since I was young, wanted to be in service to the feminine. I've worshipped it, I've loved it, but lost myself in it. I never knew how to hold that. I never knew what that was. I was never given that that training, in a sense, that initiation in my life. And when we think of that masculine, that action, that power, in some ways, I feel like part of the transition we've gone through over these years has been at a bit of a cost for a lot of men in losing our power, which we kind of need if we're going to be of service, if we're going to help make this change. And part of that has come from a confusion around the idea that, like you said, Ashley, the old way that we used to use this masculine was that the masculine decided what was going to happen, and then the masculine forced it to happen. Whereas for me, my relationship with that now is my masculine is surrendered to the feminine to find my guidance of what is to be done. And then thy will be done. I will initiate with my masculine. I will protect with my masculine. I will hold. I will, whatever that is. But I'm not the one that's telling you in that sense, but rather receiving through that divine feminine receptivity, from that higher self, the collective higher self, however we want to weave the story, and then using my power as a tool, in a sense, to carve like an artist carves out of clay, the vision. But an artist always has a muse, right? And so the muse has been, quite classically thought of as that feminine. And so the artist would see the feminine figure, the form, the movement, the essence, the energy, and they would receive this download in a way. And then they would see in this block of clay something that no one else can see, but it was a gift given to them as opposed to them defining it. And then they would use their power to carve and create and bring that into manifestation. And so, yeah, thank you for letting me share that, as that's kind of just really anchoring home a little bit more today. So I'll hand that over to you, Kenneth.
Thank you for sharing. I mean, for something that just kind of came about today, this is divine. This whole call, the people who are on it, the fact that what we just happen to be talking about tonight, what you're talking about protecting the divine feminine, what Ken's mission is on this planet, it's just like, it's amazing. So Ken, we're ready for you.
It takes a very intelligent, very centered, and a very emotional, mature man to be able to talk about that balance and that surrender to a feminine energy. So Mark, namaste, because it requires some very distinct abilities, and those are the ability to surrender, to allow, and to be. The law of allowance is one of the universal laws that I think is misunderstood so much, because the law of allowance doesn't mean you just roll over and be a doormat. It means that there is a very strong inner knowing of you, that that you sit upon the shoulder of a giant, whispering in the ear, guiding this energy, this force, right? And it's not an ego. You're just within yourself, the most powerful being, the most connected. The more connected to your soul, the more equal you are with this divine intelligence. And so the balance has become out of balance over the last, 100 years or so, with that masculine and feminine. The masculine, we just look at the way the bodies are built. The masculine body is built for certain tasks, for certain abilities, and its size isn't to overpower. Its size is to do a job, right? To do a service, to do a protection. And this is my mission. Like Ashley talked about a mission. It's been to protect this divine feminine energy for years now. Not to stop it from skinning its knees, bumping its elbows, making mistakes. That's not my job. But my job is to, or my honor is to hold off a predatory energy, to allow that feminine energy to really blossom in its power without fear of being preyed upon, taken advantage of, or in any way held hostage to an old belief structure. So that's been what I've been doing, and holding that energy is, to me, it feels like an honor. This body's been built to do this job, and then really support it. What's it look like? How do I partner with it? I mean, I believe in a soul there is no superior. A soul has a journey, right? And it cycles through these lives, and it's not more superior than another soul. It's just on a different journey, right? In this life, this body, it's inhabiting what this body does with that life. That soul learns and takes a piece of it on to the next part of its journey. I believe that the better we get at aligning a consciousness or feeding a consciousness with our soul's understanding of this mission we've got, this life. I think the better we feed this consciousness, the more positive, the more loving, the more heart-centered actions that we're taking. Doesn't matter who you are in your life, you know, a healer, a teller, or you know, just a teacher. Then the better we get at that, we're feeding a consciousness something that's been missing for a while, and we're building into what I call the 3-minute mile. Remember the 4-minute mile? Once upon a time, that was not possible until somebody did it. It upregulated the entire consciousness, and then many people were able to do it. Now, with quantum science and the understanding of the field, we're building into the 3-minute mile. And so we're now teaching this consciousness a new level of possibility. These bodies, you guys, I'm going to tell you, what your body can do is probably a third of what you're seeing, or even less. I mean, it can do a lot more than probably what we're doing in our lives right now. But the only thing standing in the way is maybe a belief about what it can do. And this, the feminine energy between masculine and feminine, that balance that Mark was talking about, this structure goes all the way down to the atomic level. It goes all the way down to the balance of to keep that atomic structure in balance. And you know what happens when it becomes out of balance? It's how we got the atomic bomb, right? The most powerful instrument of destruction. And so when we become out of balance at that lower molecular level, then all of a sudden our body does so. And I just think if we balance the feminine and masculine energy, just think how quickly we can obtain that 3-minute mile. Because now I'm not having to hold off predatory energy. The feminine is not having to be fearful of it. And when we liberate energy that's just being allocated for just day-to-day activity, and we start liberating that energy into healing, it's not a 1-to-1 ratio. Let's call it every ounce of energy that we're using to fight off the environment is a lot more energy taken away from the healing. So we get rid of something that we're using to fight off our environment. Like, let's just say, turn off the television. How about that? Turn off the TV. Maybe just don't watch some of the news and the stuff that's, it's coming into your life. We liberate that much energy. All of a sudden, it's almost a tenfold as to what the body will heal from. So I'm in on this balancing, Mark. I'm all in for that, and energizing the body, empowering our will, restructuring our belief systems. And when I was talking to Ashley about changing beliefs, and the question might come up to, well, which belief do I change? And my answer will always be all of them. To some degree, we need to modify all of our beliefs.
So, well, how do we do that, Ken? Because something came up when you're, Donna's laughing at me. Something came up when, for me, and this is, we're talking about the water element, which that's emotions. And like I said, I've been going through this shift. And when you were talking about holding off the predatory energy, I wanted to cry, just from the belief, the history in my body of being taken advantage of. And somewhere around, young teens, I shifted who I was. I became a very tough person. If you ran into somebody who knew me as a teenager versus when I was a little kid versus now, very different people. Because I learned to be very, very tough. No one's going to mess with me. I will hurt you if you mess with me. And I feel this thing flaring up in my neck, so I know that this is my truth. But how do we shift this belief that's obviously so ingrained in our body that, I'm going to be, if I'm myself, if I am vulnerable, if I surrender to my divine will, which I'm a healer. I'm not a pusher. Like, I'm a projector. Mark, I need to rest. Like, I don't want to work every single day at 7 a.m. till 9 p.m. like the world tells us that we need to do if we're going to get ahead in life. I want to work when I'm called to work and do what I'm called to do. That's the life that I choose for myself now. So how do we surrender to who we truly are without allowing our past programming to dictate what we do and how we show up?
Could I say a little thing about this?
Sure.
We're moving into a time of collaboration. It's no longer this side and this side. It's everyone lowering your barriers. And we all have so many that it's shocking. You can tell, okay, lower your barriers. You can say that 10, 20, 100 times, and we still have barriers that are out there. And that's what causes the resistance that this side is right. No, this side is right. And they're at each other's throats just about. And what I'm to understand as we go into, like, we're in a 6 year now, you add the numbers, and that is a revealing of truth. The next year, 2023, is a year of wisdom. So talking and sharing, whether it's male to female or female to female or man to man, this is crucial. We have not listened to each other, and without listening, you don't really understand yourself very well. So I think Ken alluded to that a little bit, and so did Mark earlier, that we all have the divine feminine and the divine male within us. We're coming out of patriarch 2,500 years, or even longer than that, I guess it is. But the patriarch was the one who had the final say. And we're coming into a time where it's necessary, it's crucial that we listen to both sides and say, hey, you've got a point there. Or you have different points of view and say, let me think about that. And at the moment, I just have to say, let's agree to disagree, but at least the sides are talking. And that's what I've found in the last months and the last couple of years, is this is essential. This is not something that we can push off or say, I'll look at it in a few months or whatever. This is a now thing. So that's what I wanted to share on that.
Thank you, Pepper. Your wisdom is always a blessing here.
I agree with what she said. I love what you said, because there's a component to, lowering our barrier, there is an understanding around epigenetics, what we accept, believe, and surrender to, tends to have a greater influence on that genetic code, because keeping up a barrier, that's, if we just go into, say, thermodynamics, it's required to have some sort of force in order for there to be resistance, right? So if there's something that we're resisting, where we have a barrier up, then we're building a force, and then the outer world will continue to force. And the moment you lower a barrier, like water, we understand the relevance of water. Water doesn't force anything; it moves around and within, and it finds a way, right? It finds a way to balance. And what's balance with water? It's equilibrium. Anytime there is a difference in grade, water is going to move from high grade to low grade, right? So this is the way that water finds its balance, and it's also within us. How much of us is water? A lot, right? The majority of us is water. So if we are finding balance in all things, right, it doesn't mean that you're right or wrong. Balance doesn't mean one person has to be right and one person has to be wrong. It's just that, where do you find that middle ground? Where do you lower the barriers of resistance that is building and creating and maintaining force? Where is that? And it takes, like my kudos to Mark. It takes a much higher evolved emotional being to be able to allow someone else's point of view to be a better one than mine, right? Or to be an alternative to mine, and allow this collective, this camaraderie, this collaboration that you said. It's beautiful. So be that water. I mean, in martial arts, that's my background. In martial arts, there's a balance. When you're applying, and in martial arts, I don't call it a force, I call it a message. We're giving a message to the environment, to the person, to whatever is coming in. It's a message of stop, or to retreat. So that's a balance. If I put too much force into what's coming at me, I will be knocked off balance. Right? So I have to be able to understand my energy, my force, or my energy, and my powers, and then understand the outside world's energy and powers, and find a balance with it. So
I just got a download during that, and you said you were talking about being like water, and then you started talking about your martial arts background. There's a documentary, I watched it years ago, maybe during COVID, and I think it's a biography on Bruce Lee, and I think it's just called Be Water. And I remember resonating with it. So for anyone who that resonates with, go watch that documentary. I forget if it's on Netflix or something. Just Google Be Water, Bruce Lee.
Yeah. He was one of the masters at being able to channel energy, but he also had to understand the balance. Too much energy output without a backing, like I mentioned, whispering in the ear of a giant. To have that knowing that there is a giant within you, and you can put out as much energy as you want, knowing that inner power is the divine giant. So don't be afraid of your power. Just know that there's a balance within. It has to be.
One of the things on this sheet, and I know that everyone here probably feels this way if my computer comes back up, it was about herd mentality. A lot of us don't do what we are called to do because of herd mentality. It's not popular. In fact, it's very uncomfortable when people look at you like you're crazy, or you disappoint people with your life choices, or you hurt people with your life choices, and nobody can understand it. You might seem selfish. So if you could talk about that, Mark, earlier you mentioned your G center, and some people might not know what that is. So maybe you could tell people, and then talk about how you can go with that pulling, because also on this sheet, it was talking about like when you wake up in the morning, focus on what is pulling you out, not what is pushing you out.
Absolutely. And thank you, Pepper, for that contribution. It's all very, very relevant to the changes we're going through. Absolutely. And yeah, so the G center is a term. It's always important to make sure we say that the right way. It can be misunderstood otherwise. The G center is a human design term, and talks about the center that connects, in a sense, to, you could say in a way, to our destiny. It's our identity, our sense of identity, a sense of our connection to, for love to flow through and how we manifest that in the world. But beyond that, everyone has their own authority. In human design, we have something called inner authority. And the way to understand this is you have inner authority and outer authority. And authority itself, to define that clearly, is the authority in a situation is the one who is authoring the experience. So if you are giving the power to the people around you to author, to write how you are going to experience that moment, then you are giving your authority to them. That is the power to create your experience to someone outside of yourself. So human design is often very misunderstood, and I tend to lean towards the Gene Keys work these days because it is more feminine in its approach, more about you finding through exploration your own pathway. Human design became a little disempowering for a lot of people because they, ironically, in the pursuit of finding their inner authority, gave it away to the work, gave it away to these other leaders, teachers, etc. But going beyond that, so for me, this is really what my work is all about, is connecting with others and helping them to find their inner authority. It's what Healy has been such an asset for me personally, and for those that I've worked with, to help me clear, as Ken speaks so much about, the epigenetics, it's such a powerful thing. It's almost the only thing in some ways, and Healy's been such a great tool for helping to clear some of that noise. And as you were all speaking, I was seeing the vision of, I'm sure many have heard the caterpillar analogy many times of transformation. One of the things, as the caterpillar turns into the butterfly, that is what we're seeing our collective doing right now. We are going through, we've gone into the cocoon and we're going through the process of becoming a butterfly. The caterpillar represents the old world. And I think it's important here to drop that as far as a linear timeline, which isn't really real, but for the story that we live, it is. In that linear timeline, that caterpillar world, that old archaic way of being, is part of evolution. It's part of the evolution of consciousness, creating the heat, the transformation, getting the vehicle, the human body ready to be able to bring in higher levels of consciousness into this world. So it's not that something was wrong as such. It's just evolution is hot, it's rough, it's wild, it's a fairy tale. So it's not so much about fixing what was wrong, but about trusting in what is right now and where things are going. And where we're going now is to the butterfly, which is, the butterfly represents the new form, the new cycle of humanity, which is going to take time. A lot of us want it now, but it's going to take time. And we need to enjoy that time, that adventure, the challenge, the growth. And as I was thinking of this butterfly, what a lot of people aren't aware of is when that caterpillar goes into the cocoon, it's essentially a form of suicide, right? It's going into the unknown. There will be fear in those cells, right? So as the caterpillar begins to create this cocoon, its own coffin, tomb, in a sense, that it's ending its life in, these things called imaginal cells. Now, it blew my mind, and I had to check this multiple times to check that it is actually called imaginal cells. Cells of the imagination, in a sense, is how I kind of interpret that. But I thought that was wild. These imaginal cells begin to start proliferating, begin to start multiplying within the caterpillar. And those imaginal cells hold the genetic code for the butterfly. for its transformation. Now, when they first start in the cocoon multiplying, the old caterpillar cells actually see those imaginal cells as a threat. The immune system of the caterpillar says, whoa, hang on, that doesn't belong here. That's so different to what we've had as a caterpillar for so long. We need to kill those cells. We need to destroy them. We can't let them take over. And then eventually the imaginal cells take over. It's written in the books of evolution. Those imaginal cells will always overcome the caterpillar cells, but the caterpillar cells will fight to stay alive until they eventually are strong enough and there's enough imaginal cells to overtake it. And then once they overtake it, what happens is the caterpillar cells essentially turn to a mush that becomes the energy that the imaginal cells can now reimagine and restructure and re-put together with butterfly wings, right? And so that's the process I see us going through right now, is we are imaginal cells. I see Healy as a great tool that is helping connect imaginal cells and support us as we're getting attacked by these old belief systems. Because in a sense, that's what they are, right? They're old belief systems. And our new belief systems that we're bringing in are threatening to those old belief systems because they do represent the death of those old belief systems. And so as we begin to bring these in, we use the tools that we have, etc. The last part of this butterfly analogy is remembering that if you cut a cocoon open, pull it out because you feel sorry for the butterfly. Hang on, this caterpillar, it's had a hard time, give it a break. Let's cut it open and let it out, as so many of us want to do for those around us that are going through this process. Part of it's selfish because we want to hurry the cut because it's hurting me with you going through, it's really easy to kind of want to help everyone from not necessarily the right place, that pity place. And if you cut open that cocoon and you let out that butterfly, you know what's going to happen to it? It's going to fall to the ground and die.
Yeah.
Because part of the process of that butterfly's evolution is it needs to use its butterfly wings to force its way through the cocoon, to break the cocoon open, because as it does that, it has a function. And that function is to get the hydraulic fluids moving through the butterfly wings to strengthen them, so that when it finally is free from that cocoon, its wings are strong enough to fly. And that's where I became such a fan of the Gene Keys work, is because the core essence of it is in every shadow is a gift. That the shadows of our life, the shadow patterns, the defense mechanism, these fear things in our life, they're not there to punish us or to hurt us. They're there to give us the impetus, the drive, the heat, the evolutionary fire to find the gift, to get the strength, to get that willpower to be able to overcome the environmental beliefs, like you're saying, Ken, so that we can become greater, stronger channels for this higher divine spirit to come through us, so that we can, as more of us begin to form, more imaginal cells become these conduits, like radio stations for this higher essence, this higher frequency. We start creating like a mesh around the planet that begins to help support that frequency, which means the old belief systems all of a sudden begin changing much faster. It becomes easier for them. They become easy. They don't necessarily have to go through as much craziness, but they still will have to have their growth in that sense. So yeah, that was what's coming through here. And I'm so grateful for you getting me up this morning. Thank you.
Oh my God.
This.
That was channeled. If I've ever seen anything channeled before, I just got chills that entire time. And that really just blew my mind. And the whole, like the idea of that it's a form of suicide going into the cocoon, especially with everything that I'm going through right now. Like I have cried many, many times feeling like I died. Like the old me is gone and I've died. And it's really hard, but I now see that there's this beautiful butterfly that's like coming, and maybe I just am a little sick right now because I'm being forced to rest a little bit so I can force my butterflies out. But that was so beautiful, Mark. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Ken, I know you have lots to say on that, but if you could kind of tie everything in. and we would really be grateful.
I love what you said, because like Mark said, the mesh he talks about this, I call it the web. It's another same thing, that or even the veil. You can call it so many things, but there is this layer in which we're navigating right now between this consciousness and this imaginal consciousness, that it's already there. It's always been there. It's always been there. This sense of us. This is why so many people are seeking and learning and expanding and going through these evolutions like you are, actually, this death of the old self. This is why so many people are willing to do it. The struggle, the fight, and there's a biological imperative that lives within us as well, that says when there's threats, that this biological imperative is going to figure out a way to live. And that forces us to look back at the old self and say, well, maybe not yet, right? Maybe tomorrow I'll start being a new self, right? Maybe next week I'll start being a new self. This is too hard. But the people that know it, you feel it, that there's something beyond that veil. There's something that's beyond this current status, whatever the status is in your life. And you continue to pursue it. You keep getting little breadcrumbs, little nuggets of information that says you're on the right track. You're on the right track. And the very day or the very next day, you get slapped with something that hurts, and you just go, wait, I got to find my breadcrumbs here. But this whole journey, the willingness to accept, believe, and surrender overrides so much of the paralyzation, right? That people wanted to stop, and you'll keep going. So I love the analogy of the butterfly, because it's so true. The struggle of the expansion to get out of that cocoon, to break free, is exactly the fuel that body needs, that butterfly needs, to strengthen those wings, to be able to actually pop out and do their job, right? And so we have to do the same. We have to let these bodies, go through this biological, physiological, and spiritual death of this old self, because that's evolution. And because of this big frontal lobe we got here, we can actually override this free will, to override those biological imperatives, those struggles, those resistances. We can override those. And that's a belief, which doesn't typically exist. When you bump up against struggle, typically there's a belief that I'm not good enough, or I'm not worthy of this expansion, or I can't do it. But that's the other belief, the one that should prevail, is going to be the one that there is a divine connection in you. And the better you get at quieting down the analysis of what's not serving me, and attachment to what does serve me, and let this body, this organic suit, if it feels bad, that you probably should heed that. It feels good. There's things that in the body are telling you, they feel good. They feel good. Okay, this feels good. I got to keep going and keep pursuing. Connect. My bottom line advice when I speak with anyone from an epigenetic perspective is that there's either two states you're in, growing or dying. And they equate to parasympathetic or sympathetic. The stress response keeps the body held hostage to an energetic consumption. It's not that it can't do that, but long-term consumption equates to disease, right? So the stress response is necessary for us, but in short spurts. When the deer gets chased by a predator, right? It runs runs and runs and runs. When it escapes and becomes safe again, it doesn't go and tell its friends what just happened. It just starts grazing again. It just goes back to grazing. It's not going to rehearse the story. It's not going to bring the past to the present so that the future looks exactly like yesterday. It's not going to do that. It's going to go right back to grazing. It's going to go right back to helping the body. It's going to go right back to becoming the best version of itself in that moment. So we got to let go of yesterday. And what didn't serve us yesterday, no matter how much we rehearse it right now, probably will not serve us tomorrow. So if we can let that go, and I ask this question, and I invite you to ask the question today and tomorrow and every day. Does the belief from yesterday belong in my future? Does the belief from yesterday belong in my future? If the answer is no, then rewire it. Rewire it. Find a new belief. I don't care if you have to make it up. Remember the imagination. The imaginal cells, super powerful. Doesn't matter. If you don't have evidence in your life, it's okay. Epigenetics says that it's the environment that can trigger the cell, right? Can trigger the expression. So if we make up an environment, remember, the body doesn't know the difference between an environment experience out here or an experience in here. The body doesn't know the difference. So we make it up in here to its entirety. I don't mean that, oh, I just want to have more money, or, oh, I just want a better relationship. No, no, no. What do you do with this new relationship? Who is this person? Define them. Walk downtown with them. Well, how are you dressing? What are you talking about? You know, where do you go to dinner? I mean, what are you doing together? Well, how are you co-creating? What's it look like? Build that model. The body won't know the difference between what you're making up in that mind model or what's going on in your outside environment. It will start building a body that can carry on that conversation, that can express itself within that dinner conversation or that experience. It will happen. Biology is built by the belief. So that's my tie-in. You want a future that's better than yesterday? Create a belief around it.
So good. And we're going to wrap up with this question. See if Ken, I'm going to put you on the spot. See if you can answer this in, I don't know, a couple of minutes. How can Healy help us change our belief structure?
I love that. So remember what I said. The history it lives in the body. It lives in the cell structures of the body. And those 800,000 cells per second that are being created every second, it's the energetic influence that has the mother lode influence on the cell. So 3% of the genetic code says it's going to be a skin cell, a bone cell, a muscle cell, a whatever. 3%. The other 97% is the adaptive gene reading the environment. And the environment of the cell is the interior of the body. And the interior of the body is held hostage by the thought process of the brain. Of course, thought is to the brain as emotion is to the body. And those things build a very distinct outcome or energetic frequency. So if you want to genetically change the coding of those cells, you've got to think different. You've got to have a belief structure. And I like to say, let's build a fire escape plan. Come up with some emotional experience, like just watch a sunset and have love for it. Have some super high charged gratitude for it. And then rehearse that sunset over and over and over again. Bring it into the moment in which you're having a struggle, because 800,000 cells per second are going to be built on either the struggle or the sunset. One creates a cell structure that is lower energy and closer to disease. The other creates a cell structure that is strong, vibrant, and healthy. So Healy bridges that gap between the 97% of the adaptive code, the energetic signals coming from the brain, Healy hijacks that, interfaces with that. And we can actually send frequencies specifically to those times in which that adaptive gene is seeking a frequency, seeking the last piece of the content to build the genetic code and then create the cell. So we can actually inject Healy's influence. And there are very distinct programs. If we're suffering from an emotional trauma, we're feeling upset, we're feeling discouraged, I like to go to the emotional well-being page. Just tap into soul well-being. Oh my God. Just turn that guy on, right? Just find something on that page. There's nothing that will not work for you in that moment. If you're suffering from exhaustion, a very difficult physical day, tap into regeneration just on the fitness page. It's going to work the body. It's going to give the body a regenerative energy so that those cells are now getting a new signal, not fatigue and disappointment, and maybe it's not even disappointment, but it's overwhelm, it's exhaustion, whatever it is. And you may be very well justified, folks, in the feeling, but just know that, justified or not, 800,000 cells are being built under your energetic frequency. So it takes a bit of tuning, takes a bit of diligence, it takes a bit of fortitude to be in a proper moment every moment. But Healy can help you. This little device was built very intelligently to interface with that very intelligent divine process that we already have. I like to use the microcurrent because it's also having an influence on the energies of my cells, so I can charge them up at the same time. But you can use the coil. You can even use the information field, aka the blue dot, the resonance app. You can still do that. So, so I guess in closing to this idea, the cells are being built in the present moment. Healy's interfacing with those. The historical cells that are still in their life span, you can charge them up currently from maybe a lower vibration into a higher vibration, being less healthy to more healthy. So even if you've influenced that cell structure, maybe improperly, maybe not as intelligently as you'd like, and you've built a body that is struggling right now, that's okay. Because the systems, organs, and tissues of the body that are struggling, there are programs within Healy that will raise that cell membrane voltage up back into optimal level and balance it. Don't expect it to happen on the first program, but give it time. Trust me, after using my Healy for 2.5 years, almost 3 years now, my body is a whole different breed right now. And I love it. And I run my Healy a lot. I have several, and I will drain the battery for one in a day and pump on another one. So just listen to your body. Don't be afraid to use it. Listen to your body. If you've overdone it, some of the symptoms of overdone or overuse is fatigue, is detox-like symptoms, joint pains, headaches, some of those agitations, emotional flare-ups. Those are just symptoms, just back it off a little bit and then see if those go away and then re-engage. Does that help?
Yeah. And so synchronistic that you just said that, because in the kidneys, like the symptoms for if you have a imbalance in your kidneys is excess work, overwork. So it just ties everything in. Obviously, maybe that's what's happening to me, along with the whole butterfly thing. It sounds to me like Healy is for those who are trying to make this shift. It's almost like an easy button to get you to that next level. And I know for me personally, I've been using it for 2 years now, and that's 100% what it's done. It feels as if I've done 10, maybe 15 years of spiritual, physical work on my body in 2 years. because I've used the Healy every single day, and I've learned it's not just about using it. It's about learning and showing up and listening to Mark and Ken and all the other brilliant minds that Healy has magnetized, because the world needs it right now. So thank you, Ken, so much for that. Mark, did you have anything you wanted to add as we wrap up today's amazing call?
I was just going to say, as you were talking, I had the thought that, Healy is like a midwife. I had a home birth with my boy, and the power of a midwife to be able to help the mother to relax and trust in the process of birth is huge. And in a way, I feel like that's what Healy's been for me the last 2 years. It's been a massive transformation. I've never, on a whole new level for me, and Healy has been that midwife. And like you said, Ken, you still have to use the thing. That's what I find is the biggest challenge of people having success with Healy, is having to use it. And that's that moment of willpower, is turn it on, get it started, then let the willpower go and relax. So thank you, Ashley. Thank you, everyone. Like, it's been, this is a memorable moment for me. I'm so grateful for you.
Thank you. I'm grateful for you guys too. And that's why I have that sheet. That's why we've done this 12 weeks. So for the people who are like, well, where do I get started with Healy? There's just so many programs and options. That's why we have that sheet. So reference that sheet if you want to focus on the je and the kidneys and the bladder and the water element, because there's a huge list of programs and what they're good for. So just reference that. And I just want to thank everyone for being here. This was a transformational call, and I'm definitely excited to share it and get it out into the world. So thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, Ken, great to see you as always. And I was running Potency today, and first time I've ever actually run it, and it's going to be my regular because it was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, if you got that channeled message from running that program, that's your jam. All right, everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.